Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. It has been a minute, but I wanted to come on and really talk about this topic that came up in the Dating After Divorce collective yesterday. So we have Sunday evening calls now, just because we have a lot of professionals who cannot make the daytime calls. So we have a Sunday evening coaching call for them. And there were about 6 women on the call. And this literally was solution. The solution I'm going to talk about today, self-compassion, I'll give it away right away, was the solution to all of their problems. All of the dating problems that came up on that call were all going to be solved with self-compassion. And so I'll start with the problem in the first place. The first part of the problem is that dating, because of our societal narratives, because of sexism, because of the way women, divorced women, women of a certain age are considered or talked about in society today, there are a lot of shame triggers in the dating journey. So being divorced is considered shameful. Being unmarried, so if you stayed single, is considered shameful. I'm talking as a whole. I know as individuals, there are lots of people who don't consider that shameful, and it isn't shameful. However, just the overall societal narrative, the narrative in the media, the narrative in our cultures, the narrative in our religions, all have this underlying messaging that women should be married, should be young, should be desirable, should never do anything that would make a man upset. All of these little messages that come up in so many different ways. Women shouldn't be so ambitious. Women shouldn't achieve more than men. And I'm kind of generalizing. But when you grow up in a culture or a religion or a family or a country that has these subtle messages, or if you grow up consuming media that sends these messages. On the call yesterday with my clients, we were talking, I was mentioning the fact that I read a lot of romance novels growing up. And those romance novels, they were terrible, right? These novels were terrible. I mean, you had this emotionally unavailable, cold, dismissive, but very wealthy man, right? Often, if you read Barbara Cartland, which was very popular when I was a kid, he was quite a bit older than this white, wispy is the word, you know, young woman who was helpless and about all of that. I mean, and so you can imagine growing up consuming all of that, consuming media, consuming family culture or family narratives about a woman's value being in relationships and in showing up a certain way in relationships. You can imagine that the dating journey is full of shame triggers. And shame is simply the emotion that comes up when we believe that we are doing something or thinking something or acting in a way that is upturning our accepted social order, and that we will now receive the consequences of that, of upsetting that social order, which is to be thrown out of the tribe. And this comes up so much in dating, which is why dating is so fraught. Like, we think that dating is hard because people are worse than they've always been. Women are a certain way. No, dating is hard because of the things that we have embedded into our social systems. And when we go up against these things, when we hit on these things, it becomes a problem. So if you are a woman who is divorced, just by being divorced, you have upturned the apple cart. You have said, hey, I don't have to be with a guy for my whole life. I don't have to be in a place where I'm being mistreated. I don't have to stay married and submit and let him do whatever he wants. I don't have to do that. Or if you were not the one who filed for the divorce, you are the woman who was rejected, who was not good enough, who was kicked out. right? And that to our nervous systems and our lower brains, our ancient brain, is the worst thing that could happen. Because if you were kicked out of the tribe way back in caveman days, you were going to die. Like there was, if you didn't have the tribe to support you, you were going to die. And the same thing, that ancient system, those thoughts and beliefs have been passed down, and they're still very much a part of our society, even though we don't live in caveman times. They're very much a part of our nervous system. They're very much a part of our personal narratives. And so when you are dating, it comes up, but it doesn't come up consciously. It doesn't come up in a way that you were thinking. You're not like thinking, oh, I'm now going to make sure that I'm not coming up against the social order. You just have these triggers that come up along the way. And on the call yesterday, so I was talking to my clients and it came up in different ways. So for one client, it came up in her very early dismissal of a guy. Like he was great, but there's this, and this, and I don't want to waste my time. Right. And so we talked about it. I was like, hey, let's look at what's going on here. Now, he's probably not your guy. Usually the day you meet your guy, it's usually pretty nice. However, for this particular client, there are some things that she's working through, right? There's some things that she's working through in showing up for dating, in changing her emotional imprint and who she thinks her type is. And so I was encouraging her to just slow down. I'm not saying marry the guy, but I'm saying go on another date, go on a couple of dates, get out of the house, right? And it triggered the part of her that felt like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. Like I should have said yes to a second date or whatever. And I was like, no, you're not. The whole arena of dating is a learning experiment. It's a learning arena. You're not going to get it right immediately. Like there's no such thing. It's the same thing when we graduate from college and you get your first job. Like there's no, hey, I'm going to show up on the job and I'm going to get everything right. It doesn't happen. Or starting a business or growing a business, scaling a business like I am, there's no way to like get in there and like check off all the boxes and go straight for the perfect relationship. It really is a journey. And on the journey, you're going to have things that happen, things you're going to learn about yourself and things you're going to learn about other people. And you're going to have decisions that you're going to make and mistakes that you're going to make. The problem that comes up for women is that we get judged for every little thing. You're too picky. You're not picky enough. If you haven't found someone after 2 years, there's something wrong with you. All of these things are part of this system, and it kicks in shame. So like now we're just like churning shame over and over. So she's already like working hard and getting out there and putting herself out there, changing her emotional imprint. She met 2 good guys in a row this week, which was something to really be proud of. But then when we talked about, hey, let's look at how this could have been different, it triggered shame that she didn't get 100% on her paper. And in that case, self-compassion is always the answer, because she wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't doing it wrong. I was just trying to tell her, hey, let's look at how I'm seeing a blind spot coming up for you. Not because this is your man, but because you are very concerned about wasting time. And I want us to break that down so that the fear of wasting time is no longer an issue. And for those of you who haven't listened to the podcast in a while, I did 3 episodes on time. And the fear of wasting time is a huge, huge deal, because when you're afraid to waste time, you will do one of 2 things. And I don't want to go over all that again. You will either dismiss people too quickly or you will stay too long with the people who are wrong for you. Like dating is a process, it's a journey, and it is something you are investing time in. So there's going to be times that you're going to invest time knowing that this person may not be your person, but like you're going to learn something or you want to work out something that maybe we've talked about in the academy or part of your journey, or just because maybe you're uncertain. I just don't know. I don't know about this person. I'm going to go on one more date to be able to tell. But when you're afraid of wasting time, you force yourself to make decisions when you're not ready to make the decision. You force yourself to say yes to people that you don't know enough about, or you force yourself to dismiss people that you should give a chance to. But it's not because of the decision itself. It's because of where the decision is coming from. It's coming from a fear of wasting time. There's the hustle, there's the scarcity, all those things. And then when it comes to wasting time, people have also been told, we've been shamed, women have been shamed for wasting time with the wrong guy. Oh, we've just shamed ourselves. One of the things I mentioned on the call to my clients was, hey, like we've all gone through this process of like having to think about how much time we invested in something that didn't yield the results we wanted. I invested close to 20 years in a marriage that didn't work out. Everyone on that call had invested years in marriages that didn't work. And so we're coming out of that, and unless we resolve what it means to have invested time in something that didn't have the outcome that we wanted, we're carrying that fear around. We're carrying like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to invest time in something that's not going to work out again. But you can't be relaxed and make well-considered decisions when that fear is running the show. And so another blind spot that we were talking about that came from shame was another client talking about how she felt like she needed to hurry up and make a decision and inform the man that she was dating about that decision because he had asked her about that decision earlier and she didn't have an answer earlier. And so now she's like in a panic. Have I waited too long? And I was like, no, hang on. You can't do it wrong. And that also came from a fear of, oh my goodness, I didn't tell him when he wanted. So now I have to like do this or else something's going to go wrong or else he's going to break up with me or else he's going to be mad. And that's because it's been drilled into us as women that we have to do things perfectly right in other people's eyes, that the tribe has to approve of everything we do. But that is a catch-22. You can't do things in a way that everyone will approve of. It's impossible. This is one of the things that keeps us stuck. It is that fear that someone somewhere is going to think less of what we're doing. And so we need to make sure that we've got all the ducks in a row for everyone. And so if you find yourself not moving forward with dating, not moving forward with your passion project, not moving forward with things you want to do with your life, it might be because you are afraid of feeling shame when someone criticizes the thing you want to do. Like I've heard my clients talk about how their family members or people in their lives have opinions about the fact that they're dating at 50, dating at 55, dating at 60, and how people are like, oh my God, you're boy crazy, or you shouldn't be doing that, or I wouldn't do that, or all those things, right? And so we give the power to what other people are going to say. And some of those people aren't even present, but we have them embedded in our heads, and we're trying to do what we do to please those people. And so when it comes to dating, if you have that like fear of feeling shame in the future over something, the decision to do it or not do it may not be the right one. And that's what causes the blind spot. Our blind spots in dating are caused by making decisions around dating from a place of fear, from a place of FOMO, from a place of being afraid of being judged, from a place of thinking we don't know what we're doing. Without that confidence that we know what we're doing, that you are an adult, that the world will not end if you date the wrong guy for a minute. It really won't, right? Even if people judge you, it won't end. Unless you have that confidence, you're going to be making decisions from a place of being afraid that you will be shamed. And so the antidote to this is self-compassion, is to always have your own back, to get to a place where you decide you're never going to shame yourself again for anything, because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody gets it wrong. And if you're about my age, you're in your 40s, 50s, you know, half the people you're thinking about have no idea what they're doing. Like everyone is winging it. Everyone is winging it. Everyone is winging it. I have not met a person who is not winging it. And then when they wing it long enough and learn and grow and get knowledge and information along the way, then they're able to present this beautiful thing because it's like, hey, I was winging it and then I learned some things and then I fixed it and then I tweaked it and now it's great. That's it. That's all that's happening. That's all that's happening. And some people have more resources than others to be able to move faster through that process. When I talk about my dating journey, it's the same thing. When I started dating, like I was just winging it. Like, okay. And some things happened along the way that weren't great. I was like, oh, holy moly, let's fix that, right? And so it's the process of fixing and tweaking and learning and growing along the way that gets you to success. Like there are people who be like, oh yeah, I picked the perfect person right away and I did everything right. Okay, well, that's not going to be helpful to someone who hasn't done everything right because you don't know what they need to do to like work through all of the complications along the way. The fact that you have complications with your dating is not a problem. The fact that you have made some mistakes, it's not a problem. The fact that there are some things that you need to learn and grow and practice, again, not a problem. That's just called life. That's just called being human. That's just called figuring it out. However, you don't want to figure it out like in a haphazard, chaotic way, because that can also harm you. It's sort of like when a person is, if you have symptoms in your body and you don't know what they are and you're trying to figure it out and you go to one doctor and they're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. But then instead of giving up, you go to another doctor, you read up on some of the symptoms, you figure it out along the way. You don't expect yourself to know exactly what's wrong with you right away and what the treatment is. Sometimes you have to go on a journey and do a bunch of scans and talk to a bunch of people, and then you figure it out. And it might take a while, right? But we have been given through shame, through the world shaming us, we've been given this impression that as women, you're just supposed to know everything and get it right the first time and always do it. Right. And if you grew up in a family where you were highly criticized for getting even one little thing wrong and you were shamed for getting things wrong, yeah, that might be a trigger that, you have sort of installed. And it's like the fear of being observed, doing something in a way that like someone says needs to be corrected can trigger shame. So I want you to think about whether you're open to um having to making mistakes. Are you even open to like doing things less than perfectly? Are you open to going on a date that turns out less than perfect? Are you open to going on a second date with a guy that you're not sure about? Um, or is unlikely to be the one, but you just want to make sure? Like, are you open to being in the process, investing time in the process, while also never shaming yourself, never beating yourself up, never telling yourself you're doing wrong? Rather, you become this support to yourself. You always have your own back. You're always like, listen, girl, we got this. You're always cheering yourself on. You're always seeing yourself in the most powerful light, no matter what's happening, like giving yourself that unconditional love that you're hoping a partner will give you. Do you give yourself that? Because that unconditional self compassion, where you're like, oh, I'm a human being. I'm going to make some mistakes. I have some blind spots. That's okay. I can fix those. Giving yourself that unconditional love and compassion and support is the antidote to the shame that may have been installed by the narratives or your experiences or criticisms from people. If you have your back 100%, what other people think is no longer this prison that keeps you from going after what you want. So I want you to kind of sit with that. Like, just think about it. Do I have my back 100%? Do I hide and avoid my dating journey because I'm afraid of being humiliated, embarrassed, shamed, criticized, or judged? Or am I even the one who's going to criticize myself for making one little misstep? Am I the one who humiliates myself, who shames myself for doing things wrong or for needing to learn things? So, shame, I see it all the time. It's actually what causes dating anxiety. If you have dating anxiety, below the anxiety is likely to be shame because you're anxious about being shamed for not getting the thing or not being able to do the thing or what the person is going to say. So shame is actually like a serious root cause to a lot of issues with dating. Now, I'm not saying all the guys out there are incredibly amazing. However, the guys out there, the men out there, the people out there that you may be dating are who they are. You have no control over who they are. You can only control yourself and how you show up and how you treat yourself when you show up. So that's still the first stop. One of my clients on the call yesterday was talking about, well, this guy, he didn't do this and he didn't do that. And that's why I made my decision. And I was like, well, I see that he didn't do all those things, but I don't want you making a decision based on what a man does or doesn't do. I want you making decisions based on yourself and what you want or don't want. And in her case, pointing out something tiny about the man was her way of sort of like, it was a smoke screen over the fact that she was afraid of being shamed or she was afraid of being criticized and she was afraid of wasting her time. It's okay to say no to a guy, but I always want you to own the decision. And we often don't want to own the decision because we are afraid that if we make the wrong decision, then we're going to be shamed. But I'm going to talk a little bit more on another episode about owning dating decisions, because I think that's a very important topic that kind of deserves its own treatment. So if you have shame, if you are programmed by cultural narratives, you will likely have a bunch of dating blind spots that will cause you stress along the way. Where I want you to start is checking in with your self-compassion. How am I with having my own back? How am I with never judging myself? How am I with never criticizing myself, never beating myself up, and giving myself unconditional love all of the time when I'm dating? Okay. Thank you all for your time and attention. I appreciate it. I will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to SadeCurry.com to get started. That's SadeCurry.com. I'll see you inside.